Hello and welcome to Your New Jersey. I'm Marie Falbo. On today's show, we're talking with one of New Jersey's true power couples. They're two influential voices in state politics whose careers have been built on public service, leadership, and giving back to their communities. Joining us now are Brendan W. Gill and Assemblywoman Alexan Conjasos Gill. From roots in Montclair to leadership roles across the state, their story reflects dedication, service, and a shared commitment to New Jersey. Brendan, Alexan, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you for having us.
Well, thank you for coming on. We connected like crazy over Zoom. We got to shout out Sarah Pena for introducing us. Yes. She knew we would hit it off, and she was so right. And we have shared connections through the town of Montclair. My sister-in-law, Stephanie Tenaglia, and your daughter is friends of my niece, and it's all good.
It's a small world. Montclair is like a small little town, but also you have so many things going on. But then also you get to know each individual person in town, so it's fun.
I feel like the center of the universe, at least the state of New Jersey, which is the center of the universe.
That's right.
But it revolves around Montclair. I mean, our new governor is from there now.
Yes.
And
So Alexan would say this, and I'm born and raised in Montclair.
Okay.
I am from Montclair, and I talk about Montclair all the time. It's a big part of what defined my own career based on. It's a very unique community. Very lucky to be able to be raised there. I actually talk about it to the point where Alexan says, I know, I've heard enough about Montclair already. So I love Montclair.
Well, we'll start with your story. Tell us about growing up in Montclair.
Montclair was a unique place. Grew up very modestly. My dad was a public school teacher in Montclair, recently retired, 53 years in the Montclair public schools. Helped to integrate the Montclair public schools. Montclair was a very diverse community, both racially and socioeconomically. And it really formed a lot of my worldview around community service, around tolerance, around community involvement. So Montclair had a heavy influence kind of on my own career choices that I went on later to make. You know, Montclair is filled with lots of people from various different industries, the media, the arts, finance, education. So it is, as Alexan said, a small community in a certain sense. The town is only 40,000 strong, in terms of its population, but in terms of the actual individuals who live there, like it punches way above its weight in terms of a town of that size. Those are my Jersey roots, right? Like Jersey pride. Like we don't need to be a six borough. We stand on our own.
Yeah, it's true. Well, you, my friend, are not from Montclair. You're not even from New Jersey.
No. How
did you get to the Garden State?
So I came from Colombia when I was 14 years old. My mom had immigrated years before that. So I was about 5 years old when my mom left to come here. And so then I was away from my mom for about, again, maybe 10 years.
Wow.
And then I reunited with her when I was about 14. That's the whole immigration family, story that we keep talking about. And went to Long Branch High School. And then later on, I went to Rutgers in Newark. And the reason why I tell that it's funny that I went to Rutgers in Newark is because I got accepted into Rutgers, but I had never been to Newark in my life. And my mom thought, oh, you've never been to Newark, you're just not gonna like it, so you're gonna come home and then you're gonna go to New Brunswick, and then you're gonna stay home.
That's what she wished for.
That's what she wished for. But I loved Newark. So I went to Rutgers, and the first time I ever saw Newark was when I actually went to college through the EOF program. And so we have to do a summer program when you're in EOF. So I got there, and that was the very first time I saw Newark. And I loved Newark. I loved college. So that's how I started. And how I got involved, when Brendan talks about how we ended up now in politics, is because I joined NJPIRG. And one of the things that you could choose to do is register people to vote. So then I thought, that is kind of the easiest task. How hard can it possibly be to register?
Listen, people need a roadmap now.
I thought it was the easiest thing, so that's why I chose registering people to vote. I'm like, oh, this is great. And I was registering people to vote. And I always laugh because, again, 20-something years later, I'm still doing the same thing.
Right? So, it's at the heart of your job.
Exactly. Yes. So that's how I inserted it. So that's how I started my life, my career, in just in public service.
So now we're going to shift back to you.
Yes.
How did you dip your toe in the political world at first?
So I mentioned my dad. He was a big influence on lots of dinner time conversations just around politics, around government. That was my first exposure into kind of how people at the local level could influence and make change. That led to I was a political science major at Seton Hall University, and the first thing that I ever did was I got involved in political campaigns. I thought that was a way to kind of learn about the process, to learn about how I could make a difference by electing people that shared the same values that I shared or shared the same policy positions. So I started as a volunteer when I was at Seton Hall on then Mayor Bill Pascrell. He's recently passed away, but Congressman Bill Pascrell's first campaign for Congress. And I started as a volunteer doing the same type of work, registering voters, doing direct voter contact, organizing phone banks, canvasses. Over a course of time, they eventually hired me to be formally part of their staff. He won that campaign. It was a very close campaign. It was a campaign that he actually was not supposed to win. And he won the campaign, and he immediately hired me right out of Seton Hall to be on his staff. And my kind of public service career took off from there.
So along your travels, you two met. How did that happen?
I was working for Congressman Rothman. Brendan had worked in that office and had left maybe 6 months before I came into that office. So the staff knew him, loved him, appreciated him. So we went in Atlantic City in one of those conventions. I was relatively new to the team. And so my entire office, oh, you have to meet Brendan Gill. You have to meet Brendan Gill. He's so sweet. Brendan Gill, we love Brendan Gill. He was the boss. He was the state director in that office. So then we met briefly at a bar. He tried to hit on me and tried to ask me out. I said, of course not. I mean, I don't know who you are. But then he knew where I worked, of course, because he knew. So then he started calling the office, and he called the office for about 4 or 5 months. Because at that point, I was brand new at the office. So when you're in the first job is you answer phones. So at that point, I was the person answering the phone calls. And he would call the main line. So he knew that I would answer the phone. And so then that's how we ended up speaking for 5 months before he finally, one day in December, can I please take you out to dinner? And I said, okay, sure. So then that's how we ended up in one date, and that date ended up in, I don't know, marriage, 2 children, mortgage, a business. And this is where we are now.
And it's not like you were playing hard to get.
I wasn't. I wasn't. I was just busy.
Right?
Which is the reason why he probably was so persistent. Nobody's too busy for Brendan, apparently. That's what I realized.
Is that true? Is that?
That's very true. That's very true. The part of that is true. I did call. I mean, again, this is a little while ago.
Yeah,
so this is pre.
What year is this?
It's this is 2006.
Okay.
So this is pre.
20 years ago.
Yeah. So this is pre-cell phones, kind of really being that kind of communication. So you did have to call. You called offices. You didn't call people on their cell phone. You left messages. You left voicemails. But that's
a true romantic thing that should be happening now, right?
There was a point of that, and all that's true. And I did call the line knowing that that's true. The part of the story that she left out is that the date that she gave me was the day after Christmas, I think, thinking that I was going to say no. So she was like, sure, because it was late December. And she was like, how about December 26th? I'm like December 26th? Okay. So I said yes. And the rest they say is history.
So I want to go back to now your career. Okay. So now you're dating this handsome, up and coming, power broker here in the state. You were getting your start in your career. How did you ascend to where you are today?
So I'll tell you a quick little story that is actually kind of funny, because Brendan had worked for Congressman Rothman, but now he worked with Congressman Pascrell. He's always been very loyal to Congressman Pascrell. That's when he got his started. But then the districts, there was redistricting, and Congressman Pascrell and Congressman Rothman were in the same district. But then the funny thing is that I was working for Rothman, and he was still loyal to Pascrell. We were in different sides. Of course, I'm supportive Rothman. And so one of the stories that I have to tell is that one of his friends from Pascrell's office, why are you talking to Alexan? You can't give him our secrets. And one day, I'm going to tell you this, one day it was 11 p.m. at night. We were both in bed. We had just had our daughter. And Brendan, all of a sudden I hear him whisper. He's like, she's my wife. I guess someone told him, why are you talking to her? So it was a funny thing because we were not in the same team. But anyway, moving forward, we lost it. We lost that election. Pascrell won. Then Governor Phil Murphy, he started running for office. Brendan became the campaign manager for that campaign, and then I became the director of the Latino Outreach Program to that campaign. And the reason why is because at that point, no one knew Murphy. He was not a well-known person. He was basically a new entity. A lot of people did not want to take a risk on him. And so there was no Latino outreach program. Nobody wanted to join that campaign because no one really knew him or where that was going to lead. But Brendan was doing this, so then I kind of like nudge him. I'm like, I can possibly do this. I've never run a statewide campaign, but I've been involved in politics and in the Latino outreach for a while. Maybe I can do this. I was a little shy. I was a little, nervous about doing this. But then that was the very first time Brendan and I worked together. He was a campaign manager. I did the Latino outreach program for Murphy, and we did a pretty good team. We became a pretty,
two terms.
So that was a pretty good, that was the first time that Brendan and I worked together. And I will tell you that working with Brendan was, again, eye-opening because of course I know him and I hear about him, but I never worked with him. So it was a real pleasure just to see him and have these large staff meetings and how he thinks and how he organizes the staff, how he organizes the policy, the communications, how he speaks to people, how he's so organized. So that's how I moved on in my political career.
Yeah, to be statewide.
Exactly. And then years later, and then again, you got to know the state in so many different ways. You get to know the communities in various different ways. So again, through different eyes and different ways of seeing the world in New Jersey. So that's how we ended up working together.
Obviously, with the success of Governor Phil Murphy's campaign, you must have realized that, wow, she could be a really great asset for my private sector company as well. Tell us about how you work together on that front and about that company.
So Alexan, in answering that question, was being modest. I mean, she was involved in other statewide Latino organizations. So she had political experience. She didn't have statewide campaign experience, but she had been very active in the Hispanic Information and Research Center, which houses Latino history, Puerto Rican history, but Hispanic history, Latino history. It's a wonderful organization. That's a statewide organization, and had been involved in other statewide, non-political, I would say, Latino organizations. So she had relationships across the state in those communities that were very much important to the campaign at that point in time and to the Murphy for Governor campaign. I wouldn't say that that led to our coming together in our business at that time. Right after that campaign, I launched my own full-service public affairs and digital media firm. And Alexan jumped in on some of the clients that we had at that point. She got very involved with our cannabis clients. That was a new emerging industry in the state of New Jersey that we were working in, and Alexan got very involved in that. There was a relationship between Latin America and the United States, around that particular issue, which Alexan had, policy expertise in. So there was a variety of things that I knew Alexan would bring. Married couples working together, that can be good and bad.
Hit or miss, yes.
It's like, so I don't think I wouldn't say again that we had the blueprint for that. I think tried to figure out ways that we could partner and grow a business. We both had a vision for what the business could be, what it could look like, and we both had different skill sets, in order to make those things happen. Alexan very much also jumped in to handle a lot of some of the administrative work when you're growing a firm of that size, the personnel work when you're growing a firm of that size. One of the beautiful things about Alexan is she has long-term vision. And I'm more of a right here and now. We got to make sure that this works right now. But she likes to see the steps down the road, and she pushed our firm and our business in a way that helped it grow. So I don't think at that time I was thinking like Alexan's a perfect candidate, and vice versa. Vice versa. I don't think that she was saying at that point in time, that her life goal was to, be working with her husband for 8 hours a day and then go home and spend another 6 with the kids. But, we had a lot of cross-pollination, shared interests, and a lot of shared relationships where it became readily apparent that, hey, if we work on something together, we could actually make this really good. And if we could navigate all the normal tension, quite frankly, that does happen when you're in a relationship, right? And when you're working together, and also making sure that people understood in other settings. I think having that setting, to take a step back, having that formal setting in Governor Murphy's first campaign, where we were subject to very specific rules, right? As a married couple, right? I had management responsibility, so there's certain, all those kind of HR type things where you want to make sure people know you're being treated fairly, no one's being treated getting special advantage and vice versa, right? Like those things are important. You learn from that process, and then that process helps you when you work together in the private sector to be able to like navigate those very things, and at the same time to like grow your business. So she brought all the obvious things that we just talked about to the table, and that was really beneficial to the growth of our firm.
And today you're just rocking it out still.
Yeah. No, we're doing the firm's doing well. We miss Alexan. She's no longer with the firm since she went into the General Assembly. She had to leave our firm, but we do miss her. At the Gill group.
Staff meetings.
We miss you at the staff meetings.
Well, that's the last leg of this story, because running successful campaigns and contributing to a vast business wasn't enough for you, I guess.
And the timing was actually interesting, because working with Brendan in the Murphy campaign, it really did. It helped us see each other's strength as professionals, which was great. Again, no, I don't think either of us thought that this is something that we planned, be in the business together. But again, working in the same business, it is challenging. I mean, what Brendan said, yes, there's working 8 hours in the office and then coming home and talk about the same things that we just work 8 hours, in the office is tiring. So I was already in the process of transitioning out of the Gill group and just taking a break. Again, the firm was pretty established. We had structure was very well done. So it was time for me to take a step back. And as I was doing this, then the opportunity came up. So it was an easy transition in the sense of the timing. I was already trying to get myself out of the Gill group, and then the opportunity came up, and then we said yes. And I said we because, we're both in the same industry, so Brendan's kind of, push and like, hey, you should do this if this opportunity comes up. I never thought it would happen, or it never occurred to me. That was not something in my mind of being in an elected office. But then it did, and so now we're here.
Do you love it?
I love the work that is happening. I love the opportunities. I do love a lot of the things that are happening on the legislature. I always say that I'm pretty good at the behind the scene work, so just getting the work done. The spotlight, the things that you have to do are not my favorite things, like being out in the front and going to the events and public speaking. Those are not my favorite things.
I'm shocked to hear you say that.
Those are not my favorite things. I like the actual work behind the scene, like thinking of a problem and figuring out how you can get to the solution. That's my favorite part of it, and connecting the dots all the time. So yeah, the public speaking, the being the presence is not my favorite thing, but once I'm in it, I enjoy it. And it's because of something that Brendan said is, we have to like what we're doing. We have to like people. I have to think as to why we're doing what we're doing. And then if you like it, then it comes across as genuine.
Of course.
And so
it's a lot of strain. I would say that there's also a lot of strain with that. So for 15 years before that, I was an elected official as well. So Alexan was on the other side of that, and now we're both elected officials. It is a unique, I'm winding down my elected official career right now, but it's a unique experience because there are very few dual elected official households, like in the entire country. Normally, you have couples that people have run for office, one runs and then another runs, but there's unusual that you'd have two at the same time, where I was county official and Alex is now state official. So, there's a strain from the outside, meaning on how people view that and how they view the decisions, and they have a lot of opinions, right? Which can be hard on your personal side, like on your marriage itself, right? Because people take liberties to make assumptions about how decisions got made and why they got made, and even say disparaging things, whether they're saying about Alexan or about me, in terms of like how these things actually happened, if that makes sense.
It totally
and
makes sense.
so that part is a lot, and it can. But what I think keeps us centered is Alexan and I came from the same starting point, which was like this was about service when we started, and it's still about service. Like we're lucky to be able to do it. We were also very lucky to be able to build other careers around it and as a part of it. And ultimately, that's what makes it all worth it. When you look back, as Alexan said, like she's behind the scenes right now. She's working on one of the most critical pieces of environmental legislation in the state. I was able to get the now called the Greenaway, the Essex Hudson Greenaway, done during the time on the Essex County Board of Commissioners. Like these are legacy projects that are not about necessarily us, they're about the communities that we are serving. And that's what I think what keeps us going, and that we're lucky to be able to do it.
And you're just both lucky to have each other because you're rooting each other on. You feed off each other's energy. There's no jealousy, animosity. Listen, I dated really bad people that were jealous of my rise in media, and that like totally undercut the relationship. And it was not until I found Stephanie's brother, he was the only guy that was like, yeah, you do you, let's go. And, he has a business, he's in finance, but I don't understand finance, but I understand what it takes to run and own a business. So we bounce ideas off each other, advice when we're in like a client dilemma, that sort of thing. And it just breeds love and positivity, and the children benefit, and everybody wins.
Yeah, and that's kind of one of those things. I mean, even the way that I handle some of my, Brendan is talking about the Climate Superfund, the big project. I do think of how Brenda would handle this, because he's like, we have to have weekly calls, we have to have agenda, we have to have, and even when I do some of these big projects, and I do go back and think of how does Brenda work on these specific projects. So, even because there's political implications or strategy that goes behind it. So of course I do have Brendan like almost whispering in my head sometimes, and then there's the times that I actually do ask him, like, this is what we're doing, this is what we're doing, who do I need to talk to? And he will tell me something so simple, like, hey, you need to talk to this and this person because they are part of this project, or they're laborers. And I'm like, wow, that's like a brilliant idea.
Because when you're in it sometimes.
Exactly.
Right? You need that other person to see the different perspective.
Exactly. So that's the big picture of that. But again, because we've worked so well together for so long, I can sometimes hear him. Sometimes I ask the questions that I know he would ask, even if he already knew the answer. I'm like, yeah, I just need to ask it because I need. So it's interesting, and it works well because he has strengths that I don't have, and I have to just put him into good use. Yeah.
I think too that in politics titles come and go. So these titles that we've held are not what's important. What's important is what you actually do when you're in the position, and I think that's what keeps us grounded. Not always. I mean, listen, there are definitely times where we argue, where we are like at each other's throats, figuratively, about those types of things, and you're balancing something which is unique. You're balancing like being in a public space, running for certain offices, that type of activity, which can cause like tension, can cause, right, and people around you who do not have your best interests, right, who will try to exacerbate that for their own political gain, right? That is a thing that happens, unfortunately, where people will see a situation like that and they will try to make people jealous. They will try to cause doubt, right, about decisions. And I think as long as I think we've been able to navigate that successfully so far, because we understand that this is it's like that's not what defines you. Like, being an assembly member, yes, it's a big deal. Alexan's the first Colombian American to ever serve in the New Jersey Assembly, like 15 years on Essex County Board of Commissioners, chair in the Montclair Democratic Party, which is one of the largest democratic organizations in the state of New Jersey, all the other things that we've been able to be a part of. Like, ultimately, that's not what defines you, not those titles. It's what you actually did when you had them and what you did when you were there. And I think we've been able to keep that in perspective. So yeah, that's helped.
Well, I think we all know why I introduced you at the top of the show as a true Jersey power couple. This has been so amazing.
Thank you for having us.
Really quick for our viewers, where can they find out more about you and to follow along the rest of your journey?
So I have is my legislative office. You just have to go to my legislative, Alexan Conjasos. That's it, Alexan Conjasos Gill, and you can just find me there.
Okay. And
I
all
don't have
right.
the website.
Amazing. And how about you?
You can find me in 2 different places. For at least till now, in the end of January, you can find me at the Essex County Board of Commissioners website. I'm reachable there. Also, the Gill Group is our firm. You can look us up. I'm very reachable through that. I'm on all social media platforms: Instagram, X, Facebook, and very accessible. So if you want to, anybody to your viewers out there, if you want to reach out, you can find us.
Or if they can just roam the streets of Montclair
and
bump into you that way.
Yeah, listen, or at Tierney's. One or the other.
Well, this was amazing. Thank you both
you.
again so much for taking the time.
Thanks.
Thank you for joining me on another episode of Your New Jersey. I'm Lisa Marie Falbo. We'll see you back here next week.